down.
All right, Rusty, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Always. Balls in, coming down.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, up in the 585 in the upstate New York area, we have a 501er today. We have Rusty Meeks, the CEO at the Arkansas Travelers Baseball Club. Rusty is a fellow Razorback as well, so our listeners know I get a little crazy about our hogs. I think we're probably both part hog at this point in our life. Rusty, thanks for being on the show. And I'm going to start out with just a softball, man. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. The skipper gives the sign that you're in the bullpen. What closing music are you busting out to?
Easy. Broken Heartsville, Joe Nichols. Had that teed up, man.
It's like he's had this vision before almost.
So say you rope a double. First time at bat, you make it to the show. Your parents or all your girlfriends' wives are in the audience or whatever, because I'm a big Bowman collector, man. I get fired up on these guys' debut. Rusty knocks one kind of shallow right center, and you dig a hard double. You have to slide. You in for safe. What dance are you starting out to start your career?
Oh gosh, I hadn't thought of that one as much. Maybe something to an Eric Church song. And maybe just making my own dance. I don't know, The original.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, well, Tyler's
we had the president of the Hall of Fame of baseball on our show, and he had no answers for us. Yeah. I was like, how do you know your post music, dude? Yeah.
I always think of the walk-up songs for sure. And Broken Heartsville was my song when I was in high school. Way back when. So that was always a song I love. But yeah, huge Eric Church fan too. So it'd be one of those two.
All right.
That's awesome. All right. Well, you're in the batter's box and you gotta give yourself a little motivational talk before you step in. What's that quote that you maybe now use as a leader, a CEO, to get through the dark days and through some of those challenging times? What's that quote or that tape that you play back in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I do to go on the movie thing. I do love the Bull Durham quote of sometimes it rains, sometimes it, or he says sometimes, I can't remember the exact quote, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains. I always love that. Always love that quote. Always gets me crack up. No, I mean, in all seriousness, I think for me in our business and especially at this level and the work that we put in, hours we work, and those type of things. Two big things for me are communicating. You got to communicate well, and then just caring, having a passion for what we're doing. What we do is so unique. There's really not anything like it as far as just what we, people. We run a business, but also in the baseball side of things, we offer a break for people. That's the way I look at it. I mean, a 3-hour break to come out here and just watch some baseball and forget about what's going on, forget about your problems, forget about other things, and just enjoy a cold hot dog and a lukewarm beer, man. You can't beat it,
Where do I sign? Yeah, but it speaks to kind of just I guess like that experience that ultimately you guys are looking to give. And I still go back to, we had a minor league team in Elmira. They were the Elmira Pioneers, and they were way, way, way minor, right?
Yeah.
But just how interactive they made the games. And I always love that about minor league baseball, is how do we involve families into the event? And it's kind of this evolution that we're now seeing in baseball. You've been around it your whole life. You were kind of sharing that with Tyler and I. Tell us your story on how you first got involved in baseball and why you have stuck with it. I love soccer, but I am not even close to the sport today. What made you stick with it?
I grew up at Bat Boying at Ray Winder, which was the stadium, back then. It was just like the classic old school baseball stadium. Like, I mean, it gave those vibes, right? I mean, we were walking in the dugout in the clubhouse, just stone walls, just, chew at that time when people were just all over the place. And man, I loved it, and I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with minor league baseball. I just still have vivid memories, of my father and I. We would literally go sometimes. Back then, Ray Winder had a very short roof on both sides. And there was actually a place in the left field side that you could actually see the batter. It was like a walkway.
Wow.
You could actually see the batter being outside of the stadium. And so as a left-handed batter, you could see a foul ball coming over. And so we would always catch foul balls. And to this day, I'd beat adults. They couldn't stand a chance against me when I was 12, 15, 14, 15, out there beating these adults for these baseballs. I've always been super competitive, and I think that's where it started. But yeah, man, I loved it, played it. I played a bunch of sports in high school, played minor league baseball, or not minor league baseball, played high school baseball. And I knew I was never going to be good enough to go to the next level. I've always been a toothpick and, short, not super tall and not just the build you need to, but I always knew I wanted to love it. And so, I was like, well, I think I can work on the baseball side of things. And so I went to school at U of A, of course, Woo Pig, and went up there. And then I got into the scouting side. I actually went to scouting school. I was a part-time scout for the Philadelphia Phillies for a couple years. And I loved it, man. It was awesome. That is a different lifestyle, though. I mean, you're gone a lot. It is a very challenging lifestyle. There's not a whole lot of job security, in that, just from you can't control all the players, teams losing. We see it every year. The front offices get let go, and then there's so many scouts that get let go in the process that you don't hear about. And so I was like, man, I met my wife at the time, and I said, I think I need to look at something different. So but wanted to stay in baseball, and minor league team here, Arkansas Travelers, of course, had an opening as basically a ticket intern, and so I jumped on board and making pennies and selling season tickets, and then jumped into assistant concessions manager and filling out ice machines and moving kegs, which are extremely heavy, by the way, and all those type of things, and they also roll a long way when they fall off a cart. I learned that the hard way. So doing all that, and man, I was 21, 22, I guess, at the time. And then my first full year, our director of merchandise person at the time left after 3 days of opening. I mean, third game, she was gone.
Wow.
Had another opportunity outside of sports, had a family, and so they put me into that role. So I was director of merchandise, became director of corporate sales. While I was doing director of merchandise, became assistant GM, and then in 2020 I got promoted to CEO, and here we are. I don't know what happened, but here we are, and I absolutely love it, man. It's an awesome time and an awesome thing to work in. It is challenging, just like any business is, of course, and the game has changed so much in my short tenure here. I guess I just finished my 14th season in baseball. I was an intern at Northwest Naturals for a couple of years when I was in college, which was super fun. Besides dressing up as a mascot, we made it work. I've literally done it all. The only thing I've never done is I've never done the PA announcement on a game.
Okay.
I've been on a radio broadcast and done some color, but I've never called a batter. Maybe that's something I need to tell my team I need to do this year. I'm sure they'll love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And Rusty, I wanted to go back to like the scouting you were talking about. Like you said, that is because like I was telling you, I collect the Bowman first on these prospects and whatnot. I love it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to even pay attention on like the MILBTV.com with all this. There's like 7 people in the stands half the time, right? And it's not very glamorizing. But if you know like your guy that you're looking at, man, it's super entertaining for me. But baseball is one of those weird things to me. It's like you're not looking for the 6'8" swing man, right? Who's like, or like your 350-pound left tackle, like the Altuves of the world and whatnot. How much different do you think scouting is in baseball than the other big 3 sports?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely so much video now, and just we've got so many TVs in our area down here now at the minor league level for our team. We're looking at we are starting building a brand new batting practice facility, which is part of major league requirements that we're having to do. And it's just so much more technical now than even when I was doing. I mean, there's so many things done from a video standpoint. The analytics is just a whole nother animal. And so, yeah, it's just a completely, I mean, they literally have TrackMan in the dugout now. So, which is the system that shows everything, spin rate and miles per hour, which I know you guys know about, but so listeners do. And it's just so in depth, and they legitimately have a TV in the dugout during the game. That is like showing these. Yeah, it's really funny when there's like a bad call or a questionable call. You'll see all the coaches turn their head and look at the computer screen to see where the pitch was or something. So it's kind of funny on there, but it's just part of the game, and everyone's got to adapt to it. I get it. I'm always following the camp kind of a mix. I guess just because maybe I did do the scouting for a while, so I kind of see the need of, just trusting your gut, really seeing kind of intuition. You got to use the numbers too; they're important, and you got to use them. It's just like with anything. I mean, I always use this analogy with me. I've got our CFO is phenomenal. He gives me all the numbers that I can get to where we can make the best business decision. Doesn't mean that's the decision we're going to make just based off that, but I need all the information I can so I can feel confident in making our best decision for our company.
Yeah.
I see it kind of the same way, when you're using analytics. Take the analytics, take all the numbers, and then help that make your decision based off of what you feel is right and see. So
Yeah.
I love that you say that, man, because like you get all this like bat speed through the power zone or whatever they're calling it, and like the guy's still hitting the ball, and I'm like, you see like I don't know, I've been I got the Baseball Americas over here, and I just love it. You can really get into this stuff, man.
You can get lost in it, man. There's a lot of stats. There's a lot of stats.
Do you think Rusty, it's the chase of perfection, right? Of the player or the team? Like, what do you think that is? Like this wanting to know just about every point within bat, pitch, catch, whatever it might be.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's two things. Yeah, I think it's perfection for sure. I think it's just so part of the game now. That's what gets these big contracts. I mean, there's certain stats, home runs, bat speed is something you hear about all the time. Ball speed out of the deal. Those type of things. Spin rate on the pitcher's slider and stuff. I mean, guys are throwing harder and faster than they ever were before. They're throwing 100% every single pitch. They're swinging for a 400-foot home run every single swing. Those type of things. It's just a different game. And again, I think I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's just different. And so I think guys are just really more in tune, with that. And so they just care a lot more about it.
One of the things that you said that I have to go back for, because I'm not in a professional sports, but I'm always drawing parallels between professional sports and businesses, right? If ultimately people are our greatest asset, that's something that baseball, football, soccer, you guys have always known that. It's about what players you put on the field, and they better be the best in order to have the best possible outcome, which is winning that game, championship, whatever it might be. And I just think as like I've been in sales a majority of my career, and only really in sales do we have data associated with contracts or monetary value. And I can just think of so many other individuals that help sales ultimately at the end of the day and help your customer that don't have some of those data points, but I know would tied to their performance. So I was just kind of one of the things I wanted to get back to also from your scouting days is your ability to spot potential is really what makes the best scout ultimately, and maybe see something that nobody else saw. How have you taken what you learned in scouting and applied it to the talent acquisition and the way that you're bringing on and developing people now on your team as the CEO?
Yeah, exact same way. I mean, you see talent, you see potential. Part of when we were scouting, we had to grade them. Most all the people I were high schoolers and freshmen, sophomores in college. So I mean, these are young kids, and you're grading them on what they are now, and then you're projecting them to what they're going to be. Right. Exact same thing here. I always say this. Our GM right now is a lady named Sophie Ozier. She's phenomenal. She does a great job. 6-7 years ago, she's been GM, I guess 3 years now. I knew she was going to be a GM. And I knew that if I ever got into a role where I could hire somebody, she would be it. Just because I could see that potential. And so, I think that's a great correlation. I mean, I look at it as our staff and seeing where they can grow, learning their strengths. A big part of what we do is sales, of course, group sales, ticket sales, sponsorship sales. I do sponsorship sales, primarily part of my job, especially this time of year. And so I think, really seeing where they can really, in our job, minor league on the business side has changed so much too. I mean, it's just become a different animal. I mean, social media, just the marketing side has become such a different animal. Y'all mentioned really early on about families. I mean, that's a huge focus of ours. We really look at it as we are putting 69 events on, different events. That's what we are. I mean, we are an entertainment venue. That's just the way we look at it. I mean, it revolves around baseball, but so many people come out here, they don't have a clue who we're playing. They don't know anyone on our team. They don't care whether we win or lose. They know nothing, That's a big majority of our fan base. I mean, it's over 80-something%, I believe, from the last stats we showed, that just they come because it's a thing to do as a family, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's our focus, and really putting on those different events every single time we can. And yeah, I mean, but that's changed too. So with that, it takes a lot of talents, right? I mean, and finding where my biggest weaknesses are and our biggest weaknesses are in executive management, and making sure we have the right people to handle those. Like, I know nothing about social media. I used to run it, which is scary. Back when I first started, back in 2013 and 14, I was like, sure, why not? We don't have one. I'll do it.
That's hilarious.
No
I just love like your customer focus obsession, right? Even though you wish that your customer knew more of your players, right? Knew more about the game. You don't force that on them. You actually adjust your approach to meet the majority, which is 80%. That's that passive fan. It just kind of is comical because so many businesses do that for their customer, but they're unwilling to do it for their employees and adjust and change for that frontline employee, which is usually a majority of their workforce. So it's just, there's so many different parallels between the two. It's pretty amazing. Ty,
yeah, and I think one more thing on that. I think we had to, to your point, and some always say minor league baseball is so unique, is we have so many different fan bases, and so we have to cater to so many different people. So you've got your diehard baseball fans that have the scorebook, and by gosh, they're going to get every pitch in. Do not interrupt them. Talk to them in between innings, but not during the game.
Yeah.
You've got, buddies that come after work for 3 innings to get a hot dog and a couple beers, use us as a bar before they go home, right? You've got families that are coming, you've got groups of dad. You just have so many different people and fan bases and reasonings for them coming that you kind of have to cater to them all.
How do you do that effectively? Because I know a lot of leaders are saying, hey, Rusty, I got multi-generations that they all want different things, and I can't give everything to everybody, is what I always hear.
I think one thing that we can do is we do have so many events, so we can make certain big promotional nights focused on others, right? And what I mean by that is we can do, a Trav's history night or something like that. We're really focusing on that kind of target market. Then we do a faith and family night. We're really focusing on families, and we're in the Bible Belt, really focusing on that. So we can focus on certain nights. I would say overall, though, we can do it by just, our in-game entertainment and drawing that entertainment and cheaper prices for people. Really focusing on customer service. It's a huge thing for us when it comes to food and efficiency. And I joked about cold hot dogs, but that's one of my biggest pet peeves. My staff knows that. If we have anything cold, I am not a happy camper. I want food hot. I want beer cold. I want it the way it should be. And so, we really focus on all that. So I think it's the little things. If you can't do the little things don't matter. And we've got to do those little bitty things correctly, and really tried to focus on that. And we really changed that over the last 3 or 4 years. And this was the first year that we really saw those benefits. We had a great season. We had 318,000 fans in here.
Wow.
We were top 10, I believe, in AA baseball. For our market, we're not a big market. Little Rock is not as big as I think people think it is. And so I'm really proud of our staff. They've done a great job. So Sophie does a great job leading them on a day-to-day basis, and we got a good crew.
Dude, that's awesome to hear, Rusty. And I remember that old stadium back in my day, man. I think I won a Pepsi versus Diet Pepsi contest when I was like 10.
Yeah. Hey, we're Coke now.
Okay, good, man. My brother would be happy about that. He ties. I won't go there. But
Tyler, if you remember real quick, Fayetteville, big thing was like Coke, Pepsi. Jeff Long's Pepsi, Coke there. So when we were up there, I believe we were Pepsi, or when I was, and we switched. I had some of my friends, because our contract was up. It was kind of talked about some in Central Arkansas. I had some of my friends that were like, "You better not go to Pepsi." That were at Fayetteville, and it was really funny.
My brother still so he correlates Pepsi to Chad Morris. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nice.
So yeah, and he won't stop. I'm like, Chase, dude, it's over. He's like, no, it's not.
That's funny. Yeah, that's the one thing I've always found, that like people get there one way or the other.
And they mean it, man. Like
they mean it. And I always took it for granted. I never thought it was a huge deal. I was like, well, we got to have a soft drink, and like it's like a Bud Light Miller Light thing. People are very strong one way or the other.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, and you said so. You mentioned, and I haven't been down to Little Rock in a while, man. You said you guys got a new stadium. Is it in the same location?
Well, it's not really new anymore. I guess 2007 was the first one. So no, it's in North Little Rock now. And
Oh,
so it is actually looking towards Little Rock. It's just on the other
okay.
side of the river. It's a beautiful stadium. It's old school brick. I mean, it looks like a baseball park. You know,
Right.
it's a great stadium. Greg and his crew, Greg Johnston, our park superintendent, he was park superintendent when I was bat boying. He's been around a long time. He keeps it
Wow.
pristine, man, and it looks good. And yeah, we've got a special park and good fan base, and yeah, it's a good place to be.
Cool, man. And I wanted to ask you. So I've let you know that I'm a super nerd for this stuff nowadays. Ever since that 2020 came out, man, with like the J Dom and the Dominguez and Bobby Witt,
Yeah,
I've just been going ham.
yeah,
And like I said, like I follow some of y'all's dudes that are hopefully coming up with Locklear and Ford's already going up pretty quick, I think, right?
yeah. We should hopefully have him next year. You got Cole Young, Cole
Yep.
Emerson. You got a bunch of good guys that are going to be
Right.
coming through the pipeline. We
Tyler,
have,
stop trying to get inside information to see the card value here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was wanting to ask you, who do you look up to in the business, like your peers across the country? Is there someone that just is kicking super butt at this that you know in your the double A that you really take hold of and learn from?
Yeah, so I always make this reference. So Cool Runnings is one of my all-time favorite movies. You remember in that movie, they're always talking about the Swiss. You know, this is the way the Swiss does. If you remember that when he's always referencing them. So Tulsa Drillers, man, they do. Mike Malega is their GM up there. They do a tremendous job. Yeah, I really look up to them and call them. You know, they're in our league. So really easy to do just from working with him on a day-to-day basis. But they do a great job, man. And you know, they got a great market, a great stadium. And then I would say, you know, from a major league level, yeah, I mean, there's a lot I know of some other teams. I really look up to some guys in the Mariners organization. You know, a guy named Trevor Gooby, who's their vice president of ballpark operations. I have a really good relationship with their baseball ops guys, Jerry DePoto, their president, and Andy McKay, who's their AGM. Really look up to them. They're just good people. They treat us really well. So yeah.
Awesome. Can you just give me some? I've always wanted to ask this. So when is so when do you contact, I guess, the AAA affiliate for y'all saying, hey, this kid's got it, or do they contact you? How does that work, or how does that communication go?
Yeah, so never because we don't deal with any of that. I mean, it's all done through the major league office. So
Oh,
yeah, so they move everybody up and down. We have no say so in the players who come here, coaches, nothing. We don't do any of the hiring. We don't pay any of them. You know, none of that. You know, there's some NIL stuff now, so we do on that end, but not from a salary standpoint. And so we work with them on a daily basis. We give them housing and obviously travel and take care of all that. So we work real close with them. Some of them are my real close friends, but we don't have any say so in who moves up or down.
wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's all done. We find out when they find out.
Wow, that's fascinating. I always
Dude,
wondered that myself, Ty. I'm glad you asked because I always was curious. I mean, you feel like the local fan bases, especially during playoffs, and they're pulling up the best players. Like the local community is all enraged. Like, how could they do this? They don't even know we're in the playoffs. But
man.
ultimately, that all goes uphill. One of the questions I wanted to ask Rusty was, you talked about identifying their strengths. And kind of just like you did in scouting, the exact same way of what you're doing today. It sounds like they're to adjust your approach, and it sounded like you changed your approach. You mentioned we started to focus on the little things, cold beer and warm hot dogs. Just I know that was one example. What other things did you do over the last 3 years to start to get individuals? In the last 3 years we've had a pandemic, we've had some other things that have taken us away from the game of baseball and some of these distractions. But what did you have to change to get people to start, I guess, focusing on the little things? I think a lot of people are getting frustrated because they're like, nobody cares. We have no accountability, and really just speaks to the burnout and people just stressed and don't have the time. But what did you do over the last 3 years, or you and your team do over the last 3 years to make it into the top 10? Because it seemed like that's something that you're proud of, just like of the new stadium. And I'd love to learn how the scout, bat boy, now CEO, really took what he had to change that experience ultimately for the employee as well as your customer.
Yeah, I think, from an employee, I just fully believe it all starts with trust. That may sound simple, but I just think really trusting each other, having open communication, really, really fully trusting one another really helps reach the same goal. We may have different ways of getting there, but as long as we kind of have that same goal, same thing in place, then I'm good with that. And so I think really kind of starting from scratch, like what are our goals as a team? Like what is our goal as Arkansas Travelers, and what do we want those to be? Coming up with them as a staff, and then okay, how do we get there? And I think again it goes back to that caring and the pride in what you do, effort. You can't really teach that, in my opinion. I think you just kind of have to have it, and then if you got it, everything else is gonna be okay. I just believe that because I've seen it, and so I think, and not everyone, is always going to have that on every single day. That's where we pick each other up. And it starts with me. It starts with Sophie as far as really caring and giving those efforts and making sure that we're doing what we're saying we're going to do. That way our staff trusts us too. And then, to answer the question about some things we changed, there are two big things I can think of right off the bat. One is we changed our game times. We were always 7:05 during the week, and we had different game times on Sunday. And so I had our CFO this is a perfect example of using analytics to help you make a good decision. So I had him run all of our numbers for the last 5 years of game times, temperatures, rainy, whatever. And we realized we were missing the dinner crowd. And so at 7:05, gates open at 6:05, people were eating before they came. And then they were not staying as late because it was 7:05 during the week. You go to families. I mean, I have 3 girls myself.
Yeah,
bedtime.
My kids in bed.
We start bedtime at 7.
Yeah.
We're lucky to be asleep by 8, but we start at 7. So we changed our week game times to 6:35 and opened up at 5:35. And so I just think for my family, it's like, oh yeah, we go at 5:35, 5:45, eat, watch a couple innings, and leave at 7 or 7:30. We're not there long, but we're there an hour and a half, and we're spending some money and those type of things. So we changed that. Sunday was the same thing. We went to 1:35. That was to get the lunch crowd after church. In the summer, it doesn't. If it's 105 in Arkansas, y'all know at 6:05, and it's 105 at 2, and it's 101 at 5. It doesn't matter. It's still hot, and so we were just kind of like, it is what it is, and we're going to stick with 135 games. And so we did that, and we've seen, an increase, in that. So that's a big thing. And then we went cashless last year. That was really just, I think, just sped things up, just kind of made more efficient. And then obviously cleanliness, like we got to be clean. Like bathrooms have to be clean. Concourse has to be clean. It just has to be clean when people come in, especially coming out of the pandemic. That was a big thing for us to make sure that we were clean when people showed up and they felt like it was a clean place for their kids to go. And then offering something for everybody. We've changed a bunch of things too. We've got a train that runs around for kids. We've got a splash pad. We've got a bar now. We've got all types of things going on during the game to where you can honestly come to the game and never even watch pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm dead serious because I've had people tell me that they'll leave and they're like, "What, did we win?"
Yeah.
Who's up? Which tells me A, we're doing our job and we're offering that entertainment to everybody else, but B, I take that for granted. We think every single person is coming to watch baseball, and it's just not the case anymore.
Now, who came up with these big four? Like, obviously, maybe you and the general manager, but like, did you look to your employee, like anybody else within the organization, and kind of leave it open for feedback and just say, how do we want to get here? How do we get there? Were any of these recommendations made by others?
Yeah, we have our staff retreats every year that we did now that we used to not do. And that's where a lot of this comes out and really open. I mean, everyone needs to be able to have an opinion and give to it. And then we have an executive team of 5 of us, or 4 right now, but usually 5 of us that kind of finalize those decisions. I like that because it should never be just me. There are certain things, where I have to make that decision, sure. But majority, I like it to be a vote. I like it to be where it's not just me making that decision, or not just Sophie, where it's a group of us that are making that decision.
Yeah.
And kind of how do we work towards that? And then I just think it also makes us more efficient.
Absolutely. Well, it's just you're willing to be outside the box. And I mean, again, I'm not looking at the baseball side, but I wonder how many different applicants you got by even changing the hours, right? Now even your applicants might have been more able to make those hours for their schedules work. You kind of just see how being flexible and willing to change and adapt can lead to great success, like you've now seen and had in the last year. How have you gotten yourself so comfortable with change? Because leadership organizations, like, was it they didn't have the data, Rusty, to know, like, hey, let me look at the last 5 years. Why do we have this at 7:00? I'm so curious. I always ask, why do we do it this way? And if I get a good answer and I get the information back and I get a good reason as to this is why we do this, great. Okay, we're doing it the best way possible. Where a lot of people will stop and just say, we've always done it this way, instead of remaining curious and hungry like you have. Why are you more comfortable with change than others?
I still have a long way to go. I'll be first to admit that. We still got to change some things here that I'm still working through that, of course, and still got a long way to go. My staff knows, like, to never use "this is the way we've always done it." I can't stand that phrase. Doesn't mean that that's not what we need to do, but let's look at it, right? I think for me, it's, and we preach this to each other, and I've had staff members preach it back to me because I don't always listen to it. Is let's try something. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but let's look at it why it didn't work. But let's try something new. If it doesn't work and we can't tweak it, then we tried it and we do away with it, right? Okay, it didn't really work, but what if we made these few tweaks? Would this work? And I think we got some steam here. Let's tweak it a little bit. Always trying something new and seeing if it sticks. And we tried 3 or 4 new things a year, whether it's promotions or operational changes or those type of things that I consider risk. And we go from there. Let's try them though. I mean, it sounds corny, but I think to get comfortable, you just have to do it a few times. And then, because I was scared to death to make the change to go to cashless, I was terrified. We waited a year for it, and we probably should have done it earlier. And we did it. I got 1 complaint the entire year. I got 1 complaint. So I think to that point, that was a big change to me.
Wow.
But I got 1 complaint on it. And we dealt with that complaint and handled it, and we moved on. But it's just kind of like, okay, change is maybe not as always big as we may think it is.
Yeah. It's almost like we think it could be worse for others that we haven't thought of or haven't considered. And now we're going to learn that by making that decision. Yeah. That's fascinating, Rusty.
Yep. I mean, there's certainly some things you do that you're like, wow, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, that was terrible.
Daily. Yes. Daily.
Let's not do that again. But again, we tried it, we tried it because if staff and me, if we keep saying, let's do something, we don't do it, then they're eventually just not going to bring any ideas, and we're not going to try anything new. We're not going to grow because we're just not going to, we're going to suffocate all those ideas and just say, we're not going to do them because we're scared of it. And then why are people going to be willing to bring new ideas? Right. So, I think that limits your growth.
Oh man, and it's so much more fun to get some action involved, right? It's like four dudes sitting around talking about something, just talking and just talking, and it's just like you're saying, going in circles and never doing anything.
Yeah, take action.
I'm a huge fan of your philosophies, Rusty. Dive in and adjust from there. Hell, if it doesn't work, at least you did it, and then you have some experience. So next time someone asks you for some advice, you're like, I don't think that's it, man. Here's why. And they're like, holy crap, you really did that. I'm like, oh, I did, buddy. The whole 9, man. But that's probably my favorite. And then when you have success, it's pretty cool. You start speaking from your chest more instead of trying to sound smart because you've been through it, did it. But Rusty, I was going to ask you, man, where do you see yourself in 10 years, man? From bat boy to mascot to CEO, what's that 10-year journey going to look like, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm faced a huge part of my life. And so, I've been praying about that for a while and just trusting where I'm supposed to be is where I'm supposed to be right now. But I think, I love sports, man. I want to continue to do this. I could be here forever. I don't know. I'm certainly open to what that looks like down the road, but I do love the sports world and It's just really fun and fascinating, and you know, but with like I said, I got 3 girls all under the age of 7, so my life's a little nuts right now. So the last thing I probably need is a big change, um, but yeah, so no, it's and that's been really cool for me to see them kind of grow up the way I did. You know, ballpark's such a great place to
Yeah.
grow come as a kid, and the fact they walk in now, they act like they own the joint, which they kind of do. You know, when they tell me they want this or that, and you know, they've gotten this, like, they get hot dogs all the time, but they like me to go cook them on the grill. They don't like them on the rollers as much anymore. So they've gotten, you know, fancy when it comes to that. And so my middle one's like, "Daddy, did you cook this on the grill?" And I'm like, "Yes, baby. It's a Friday night, 7,000 people here. I took the time to go cook it on the grill."
Yeah.
You know, so I mess with them on that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely see myself in sports in 10 years for sure. Where that is, I don't know yet. But right now, I love this. You know, it's a dream come true to get to work for a team I grew up for. You know, and really working alongside with the Mariners is special as well, just because they're just good people. Making those relationships, you meet so many people in minor league baseball that are from all over the country, you know, and the world really, especially now with more Dominican Republic players, and you know, it's just, yeah, it's grown.
Yeah, man. Oh, absolutely. And like I mentioned, I watch the DR games sometimes, you know, I on TV, and
Yeah,
I don't even know what I'm watching, but you know, you kind of sink into it and get lost, man, and
yeah,
root for a guy for a couple of years. But
yeah.
I was going to ask you, Rusty, are there any more like new rules coming baseball's way, you think? You know, they've really progressed pretty quickly, I want to say, for baseball over the past
Yeah.
couple of years. I know baseball is usually the last one to kind of change things, it seems like. But, you know, we have the pitch clock. Is there anything else coming our way?
Not that I know of, you know, next year. You know, I always remind everyone that, you know, we had the pitch clock for like 4 or 5 years before it was ever in Major League Baseball.
Right.
They test everything out on us.
Oh,
And we had new baseballs a couple years ago, you know, bigger bases, all those things they test here, and they'll actually split them up. So the first half of the year, last year, there was a shift rule. I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe it was there had to be 2 guys on each side of the base of second base, and their heels had to be on the grass. And then they switched it to the following where they changed it again or did something to work with the shift. So whether or not those come down the line, I don't know. I have no idea. I will say the pitch clock has been phenomenal. I think it's one of the best things in Major League Baseball. I think it's one of the best things in baseball that they've done. I'm so proud, you know, to be part of that and them and make those decisions. You know, that Major League Baseball, we're able to go ahead and make the decision on that because it's benefited everyone. In my opinion. I mean,
oh, it's so great. It's so great.
people are staying longer now. You know, I always make this joke too. The first time we did this 2 years ago, I walked in my door at home at like 9. We had like a 2-hour and 20-some minute game. My wife was like, "Are you okay? Did you get fired?" She was like, worried because she's not used to me being home before 10:30. You know, so it was like kind of getting used to that. So that's been really cool from a selfish standpoint. You know, we've had to change our PTO and adjust our hours with our full-time staff, which is a great problem to have, but it's just something we've had to do in today's climate. And that's helped too. People getting home early, people stay longer. People are staying the whole game, which is awesome. So the atmosphere in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning is what it is in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd inning, which, you know, it just used to not be that way. And so that's made it more fun for our players, for our staff as well. So that's been a great rule change.
That's really cool. I know you said earlier, Rusty, that you don't really have a say of the coaches, right, and the personnel when it has to deal with the baseball team. You've been around that team for quite some time. You've probably seen your fair share of players, but also coaches and managers. From your estimation of what you've seen, does coaching truly make a difference in the game of baseball?
Yes. 100%.
How they manage.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think now how they manage their pitching staffs is a huge thing. Yeah, I mean, how the lineup is something people take for granted, how important that is. You know, and that's another thing with what you have analytically now, you can really see the other pitcher that you're going to be going against and really making sure you're matching up to his weaknesses, right? You're matching your strengths to his weaknesses, and they're doing the same thing vice versa. But Yeah, it definitely does. I absolutely believe that. I believe and I think at the minor league level, the assistants are a huge, huge asset. Pitching coordinators, pitching coaches, hitting coaches, because these guys are developing. And that sounds cliche, but it's just the truth. I mean, these are 20, 21, 22-year-olds, and they are developing. You know, when they get to the major league level and they've been there a while, those coaches are just there to kind of tweak them and maintain them and make sure they're staying on the right path. But at this level, you can really coach them, change mechanics, change things. You know, this is where you work on your curveball, not at the major league level. This is where you're, you know, well, I'm just saying, if you got a curveball and that's what you got to work on, that's what you're going to work on here. You know, there's guys that'll go out here and they may just throw fastballs and some changeups because they're working on certain things. You know,
Interesting.
this is where you can really develop and really grow. So yeah, coaching. That's a long answer, but I'm passionate
No,
about
it's that's exactly where I wanted you. I wanted to go into it because, like, as a viewer, right? You look at some sports, baseball, albeit like the changes, but it's still a very individualized sport. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the pitcher and the batter.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's pitch counts. You know, they got these
Yeah.
guys on pitch counts, and so you have to. Your coaching may be limited sometimes, but overall, yeah, it makes a huge difference.
It does. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh man, the data's where it's at. I think that's what I get. Like non-baseball people, Rusty, I'll throw some stuff at them, and they're like, "What?" And then they'll think about it, and they're like, "Dude, I watched Victor Scott the other day for Springfield, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, man, how many bags did he steal?" Just little things like that. Then people start texting me about the most random dudes. John Parker Wilson's brother over at the Naturals. I got a couple of Alabama guys just rolling on that, a second baseman in A baseball, you know what I mean? But I think, as individual as the sport is in a way, like it's so cool to me how you get that gut feeling when a team's hot or cold. Like just from viewing on TV, it's like it's unbelievable. It's like you just see it in like the whole demeanor of the team. You know, if a guy's like pitches up 10 Ks and a few innings, you just feel the demeanor, and there's nothing coming out of that. Rusty, I wanted to ask you real quick about the yips, though. I think the yips are the most fascinating things I've ever. One of my neighbors in college got him, but and I just thought it was nuts. Have you ever heard of someone getting the yips and coming out of it, and how did they come out of it?
You talking about like a slump, basically?
Like, for instance, a pitcher. I know a fellow who went to the Hogs, who he was one of the top in the country coming in. Kind of got over mechanicked by the coach in a way, and could barely hold a baseball in his hand by the time he left. And couldn't even hit from me to the national championship shirt. And he's the number 2 pitcher coming out of high school. Have you ever witnessed someone get the yips and come out?
I don't know for like a long period of time. I've definitely seen like a game where like they're just do something completely uncharacteristic. Throw 4 or 5 balls against the backstop. Like 10 feet over the guy's head, and you're like, where did that come from? I mean, a game maybe, but I've never been a part of seeing it like from a long period of time. I mean, I've definitely seen plenty of slumps, in my days, but and guys come out of that. But yeah, no, nothing on the yips.
Nothing on the yips. Yeah, I always talk about the yips to my friends. I'm like, dude, I know a guy.
Well, you guys were talking about college basketball earlier. That's why I think I love college basketball, because you can just see that emotional changes within the game. Like you'll see those runs. Yeah. You'll just see like there's bad decision. Team just came back. It happened in Kentucky against Kansas the other night. Tyler's texting me. I'm like, dude, they're young. They'll figure out a way to blow this. Don't worry. And sure enough, they did. So, but I wanted to ask you back to the scouting side, and I know I'm harping a lot on this, but how do you determine, because you said like, I agree with you. I think some drive, determination, I think some of that stuff, the can-do, optimistic perspective of actually getting things done cannot be taught, and it's born. I think if it's aligned with their strengths, they're more likely to do it. So I think sometimes it's just the non-alignment with what they're doing and what they're good at. But how do you spot that? And maybe it's in an interview, and maybe it's in a conversation that you have with an applicant or an individual. But how did you spot it, just like you talked about your general manager? How did you know that she would be it? Are there questions that you ask? Are there things that you look for? What kind of things can you give maybe some of the listeners that are CEOs that are listening today as a new tool in their tool bag to identify who has it, and arm them with some more of those data points or insights.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, in an interview, I think you can get an idea. I do think it's hard to fully know, because you just have a short period of time with them. Everyone puts their best on in the interview. You're putting your best on as the interviewer, so you're learning some, but you can kind of, I do almost all mine in Zoom because I like to see people face to face or in person, get an idea of just how they are, and body language, those type of things, learn from that way. And then I think like with Sophie and others, just you got to work with them and you got to be with them and you got to learn who they are and get to know them and learn how they operate, learn their strengths and weaknesses, learn what drives them, learn what doesn't drive them. They need to learn you too, and what, those type of things, what motivates you. I got so many staff members. I mean, I can't manage everybody the same. Everybody is motivated off of something differently. Some are money, some are time off, some are being told good job, some are being told they're doing a bad job. So which is always blowing my mind on that, because I'm not that way. I like being told that we're doing well. It's kind of what motivates me, and seeing my staff doing well, those type of things. That's what drives me. I think just being around them, and they're, how do they handle conflict, of course, how they handle stressful situations, which is a big thing in our job. When they come, taking time to make the right decision, and then trusting that you're making the right decision. It may not always be, but you're making the best decision that you can based off the information that you have at the time. And then, seeing that, and I saw her do that a lot. Our assistant GM's the same way. And just passion and care. That's really something I really look for, and just having passion for what you do. Take pride in what you're doing.
Yep.
And the rest will come.
Love it.
Dude, heck yeah, man. And Rusty, I just wanted to say thanks before we wrap up here for having your closing music, dude. That coming out of the bullpen, I appreciate that. I have to cut this part out, Kevin. But when that president of the Baseball Hall of Fame didn't have his closing music, dude, that grinded my gears so bad. He looked me right in the eyes and was like, "I don't have one." I'm like, all right, man. Yeah. And then I see him taking pictures with like Craig Gentry and a few of my buddies for the Rangers, and I was like, that guy doesn't have a closing music.
I also always love just a good Sandstorm. You can't, techno music, you can never beat Sandstorm, man. You just play that and everybody's good.
Oh yeah.
Well, Russ, before we jump, man, I got a couple more, one more baseball question, man. Yeah. Do you baseball arms? Okay, I know what I believe. But are people born with baseball arms, or are they developed, or how are they developed? Because I'm a huge believer that you're born with it. From the Southpaws I was growing up in Northwest Arkansas. I was like, dude's chunking 88 as a 12-year-old. That's not development.
I do believe in the God-given talent thing. You're just gifted differently. And what I mean by that is I see all these guys down here. Anyone that ever wants to play high school baseball or pro ball, I invite them to be around players, because these guys are just giants. I mean, they are just big dudes, and they're just very strong. They're tall. They're just built different than me. God just made them different than He made me. And I absolutely think you can teach things. I do think you have to have raw talent when it comes to the pitching world. I mean, especially in today's worlds of analytics. I mean, if you're not throwing mid to high 90s, you're not going to really get looked at too much, unless you're a really special guy throwing sidearm or something like that, or submarine, which are, rare. We had one guy last year. He's a good friend of mine that did throw kind of submarine. He was throwing like 86 or something, but he got people out, man. People couldn't hit him or ground balls. So, yeah, I mean, I yes to both. I would say it's definitely primarily the talent, and then that's where the coaching comes in, though. You gotta. So you got to refine it. You got to, Kevin being in the sales world, you'll understand this. Same thing with me. I have people that are great at picking up the phone, but man, they're talking way too quick, and they're getting the information. You got to slow down. You got to, same type of deal. They got the talent to do well and talent to be really successful with their job. And we just have to kind of refine. People do that with me, and so same thing.
Just go back to your pitching swing coaches. It's almost the same, right? Everybody's align into their strengths. I mean, every best golf coach tells you that not to chase the perfect swing, work with the swing that you have to make it as perfect for you as possible. But Yeah, absolutely. Rusty, this was fantastic. I so appreciate it. Up here in Rochester, we have the mighty Red Wings who have kind of been in the toilet for quite some time, but Naomi does a great job to provide the experience. She has no say over the players, but really appreciate you kind of shining a light as to what it's like to be a CEO at one of these minor league ballparks. I've been going to them as a small kid, Tyler, and you as yourself. So it's amazing to hear somebody that is a bat boy is now running the organization and kind of in this new way and achieving success along the way. Despite your resume maybe not supporting, oh, this person is made for a CEO, somebody else spotted your potential along the way too, which is exciting.
Appreciate it. No, definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely not made for that, but we're figuring it out as we go.